This is a story about Samuel and Isabella, two children from very wealthy families. Samuel's father owns the biggest company in Nigeria, Starlight Enterprise. They deal in many things: oil and gas, real estate, technology, transport, and agriculture. They are one of the richest families in the whole country. Isabella's father is a powerful Nigerian senator who wants to run for president. She also grew up with money, comfort, and everything she wanted. Even though they were both from powerful families, they actually met far away, in the United States, while studying for their master's degrees. The moment Samuel saw Isabella, he fell in love instantly, and from there, their relationship grew stronger and stronger. Soon, their love led to a massive wedding of the year in Lagos. The whole country talked about it: celebrities, governors, diplomats, everyone was there. It was a marriage between two very wealthy families. After the wedding, they went on a beautiful honeymoon to Santorini, Greece. It was peaceful, romantic, and full of love. Samuel and Isabella felt like nothing could ever go wrong. But when they returned to Lagos and started living together as husband and wife, that was when real life started. Samuel grew up in a home where culture and discipline were important. He believed that even if you had money, a wife should still help keep the home in order, not as a servant, but as a partner. But Isabella did not grow up that way at all. She was used to having housemaids, cooks, cleaners. She never did chores, not even small ones. She didn't cook, she didn't clean, she didn't arrange anything. So when Samuel expected teamwork at home, she refused, and arguments began. At first, they were small disagreements. Then they became constant fights. Samuel would complain about the dirty plates, the unclean kitchen, the messy living room, and Isabella would say, "Samuel, I didn't grow up doing house chores. I'm not about to start now. If you want peace, hire someone." After several heated arguments and constant pressure from Isabella, Samuel finally agreed to hire a maid. And that was how Olivia entered their lives. After Olivia joined the household, life slowly began to settle. For the first time in months, Samuel came home to warmth instead of tension. The meals were fresh, the house was spotless, and the silence felt calm rather than hostile. Olivia worked quietly, moving through the house with gentle discipline. She didn't talk much, but her presence brought order to the chaos Samuel's life had become. For a moment, it seemed like peace had finally returned, but sometimes, peace is only a pause before the storm. One morning, a man walked into Starlight Enterprise, tired, worn, filled with the weight of a hard life. It was David, Samuel's older half-brother, a son the world never knew existed. Born from their father's secret past, David told a heartbreaking story. His mother had died, he had nowhere else to turn, and he begged for forgiveness. Samuel's father, carrying years of guilt, took him back and gave him a high position in the company. But instead of rebuilding his life, David destroyed theirs. For 3 years he embezzled money, took loans in the company's name, and made reckless investments. Then he vanished, leaving the company drowning in debt. Starlight Enterprise, once the #1 company in Nigeria, crumbled before Samuel's eyes. And with it, his marriage began to collapse too. When the crisis hit, Isabella showed her true colors. She blamed Samuel for everything, blamed his father, blamed the shameful affair that resulted in David. Instead of supporting her husband, she threw insults, saying it served their family right. She stopped coming home early. She spent her nights at political gatherings, cocktail events, and elite meetings, helping her father secure sponsors for his upcoming presidential campaign. Her marriage became the least of her concerns. One evening, Samuel was in his study room, surrounded by piles of documents, financial reports, debt statements, collapsing investments. He was exhausted, stressed, and fighting to save what remained of his father's empire. A gentle knock came at the door. Olivia stepped in holding a cup of steaming coffee. She placed it quietly on his desk. He looked up at her with tired eyes and managed a small smile. Then he asked casually where Isabella was. Olivia hesitated, then sighed softly and said Isabella had left early in the morning and had not returned. She explained that she tried calling when dinner was ready, but Isabella never picked up. Samuel checked the time. past 9 at night, and nodded slowly. Disappointment settling in his chest, not shock. Just sadness. He whispered that Isabella didn't care anymore. Olivia looked at him with quiet sympathy and gently told him he was doing his best. For a brief moment, their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, comfort and understanding. Later that week, Samuel faced the hardest night of his life. His father took his last breath in the hospital. Samuel stayed by his side until the very end, holding his cold hand, fighting back tears that refused to stop. By the time he drove home, grief swallowed him whole. His eyes were red, his heart shattered, and the faint smell of alcohol lingered on him, not from partying, but from pain. He opened the front door of the mansion around 1:17 a.m. and found Isabella fully dressed, makeup perfect, perfume strong, walking toward the exit. He stared at her in disbelief and asked quietly where she was going so late. She barely glanced at him, annoyed, saying she had important places to be and he was late again. His voice trembled as he whispered that his father had died, but Isabella simply shrugged, saying she couldn't let his family drama derail her plans. The words cut deeper than any knife. He asked if she even cared about him. She laughed coldly and said she never pretended. She married him for political benefit, not love. Samuel felt the world crumble beneath him. He asked if everything had been a lie, and Isabella said it was easier for him if he believed that. Then she walked past him, slammed the door, and disappeared into the night. Samuel collapsed to the floor, overwhelmed by grief, betrayal, and loneliness. He buried his face in his hands, trembling uncontrollably. Minutes later, Olivia walked into the living room and froze when she saw him. She rushed to his side, knelt beside him, and gently urged him to sit up. He looked at her with broken eyes and whispered that he had no one left. Olivia placed her hand softly over his, telling him he wasn't alone, not while she was there. He stared at her, confused by her kindness, and asked why she cared so much. She took a breath and said she cared because he deserved someone who truly saw him, someone who wanted nothing from him, someone who didn't judge him. He closed his eyes as tears streamed again. Olivia helped him to the couch, covered him gently with a blanket, and stayed nearby until he finally fell asleep. From that night on, their connection grew deeper, quietly, softly, dangerously. What began as comfort slowly became something much more. After that unforgettable night, everything began to change, quietly, slowly, but deeply. Samuel's father had just died, and the weight of the world seemed to fall on his shoulders. Every evening he returned home exhausted, hungry, and emotionally drained. Yet the only person who noticed his pain wasn't his wife. It was Olivia. From that night onward, Samuel and Olivia grew closer, not in a rushed, reckless way, but in a natural, unplanned bond that neither of them expected. Whenever Samuel found a break from work, he drifted into the kitchen, where Olivia was always preparing something. They talked, sometimes about work, sometimes about life, sometimes about nothing important at all. And for the first time in months, Samuel laughed again. He also discovered something he never knew. Olivia wasn't just a maid. She was a graduate, smart, observant, and full of ideas. Slowly, she became more than someone who cooked for him. She became someone who helped him see a future for Starlight Enterprise. Together, they began working on a plan. They used the family's assets as collateral to take a new loan from another bank. They sold Samuel's cars, his luxury items, and anything unnecessary. They cleared the company's old debt. And with the remaining funds, they started rebuilding the company from the ground up. Olivia worked beside him tirelessly, researching, planning, analyzing strategies. They attended meetings, built new investor relationships, and redesigned the company's growth model, and slowly, Starlight Enterprise started to rise again. Meanwhile, Isabella continued with her careless lifestyle. She stayed out late, returned home smelling of alcohol, and no longer pretended to care about her marriage. But Samuel didn't even have time to notice. His energy was focused on saving his father's legacy, and Olivia was the one by his side. One evening, during their usual routine in the kitchen, Olivia casually mentioned an idea about expanding the transportation sector of the company. Her explanation was simple but brilliant, something Samuel had never thought of. Samuel froze for a moment. Then he grabbed her, lifted her slightly, and spun her around in pure excitement, thanking her over and over, when he finally put her down. The happiness, the relief, and the closeness overwhelmed him. Before he could think, he kissed her. Olivia pulled back immediately, shocked. Her voice trembled as she said she was loyal to her madam. That she didn't want to destroy a marriage, but Samuel gently held her face, his voice low and honest as he confessed his feelings he had been fighting for weeks. Feelings he could no longer hide, and Olivia tried. She tried to resist. But the truth was, she cared too. One kiss became another, and the wall between them finally collapsed. They made love. The next morning, Samuel woke up with Olivia in his arms, peaceful, soft, warm, the first real comfort he had felt in a very long time. They whispered to each other, confessing feelings they had held back for too long, until footsteps sounded in the hallway. Olivia panicked, jumped out of bed, and rushed to her room. She changed into her uniform immediately and went back to the kitchen as if nothing happened. Moments later, Isabella walked in, smelling of alcohol as usual, completely unaware of what had taken place under her own roof. And from that day, the bond between Samuel and Olivia quietly grew stronger, even as Starlight Enterprise slowly returned to life. Isabella's life was falling apart. But it didn't happen all at once. It started quietly. Her father, desperate for financial support, arranged a private blind date for her. The man's name was Edward, the nephew of a former president, a powerful connection. A potential sponsor, but behind the polished suit and fake smile, Edward had a dark secret. He was a drug addict. Isabella sat across from him at the restaurant, forcing herself to smile. Inside, she felt sick. She knew this wasn't love. It wasn't even life, it was survival. Every night she cried. She wanted to walk away. But she stayed, because in her mind, she was doing all of this for her father's presidential ambition. She had sacrificed her marriage, her happiness, even her dignity. All to help him win. Soon, the campaign season started. Her father's rallies became the most talked about in the country. People praised him for the good things he had done in the past, the free health outreaches, the scholarship programs, the road projects, the monthly food drives. He was becoming a favorite. He was number one on everyone's lips. But his opponents were not smiling. One of them hired a private investigator, someone ruthless, to dig into every dark corner of Isabella's father's life, and they found everything, the truth that had been buried for years, the shady deals, the illegal money. The fact that he once sold drugs to raise the capital he used to enter politics. All the skeletons came out to dance. The report was sent anonymously to several news stations, and on a bright Monday morning, the scandal broke. The nation watched in shock. His career, his reputation, everything he built, collapsed in minutes. Edward didn't waste time. He ended things with Isabella immediately. Sponsors ran. Investors disappeared, and when the election results came, he lost. Completely, her father's political dreams were gone. With nowhere left to run, Isabella returned to the one place she still had access to, her husband's home. She walked into the mansion expecting cold walls and silence, but instead, she froze. There, on the balcony, she saw Samuel and Olivia sitting together, laughing, playing chess like two people at peace with each other. The sight stabbed her straight in the chest. Isabella stormed toward them. "So this is what you've been doing behind my back?" she yelled. "You liar. You cheat." Olivia stood up immediately, shocked and speechless. But Isabella wasn't done. She pointed at Olivia with shaking hands. "And you? You lowlife. You gold digger. A common maid trying to replace me? Destroy my home? Is this what you wanted?" Olivia's eyes watered, but she said nothing. Samuel rose slowly, calm but firm. "Isabella. Enough." She turned to him sharply. "How dare you defend her? She used you. She is nothing but a home wrecker." Samuel stepped closer, his voice steady. "No, Isabella. The real gold digger here is you. She gasped, stunned. Samuel continued, you didn't marry me for love. You married me so your father could secure support for his election. And when things got hard, you abandoned me. Left me alone in my darkest times. Isabella's eyes flickered with guilt. Samuel turned to Olivia. This woman stood by me when everyone else disappeared. She helped me rebuild my father's company. She cared about me when my own wife didn't. Isabella's voice cracked. So you replaced me with the maid? Samuel sighed deeply. You replaced yourself when you walked out of this marriage. There was silence, a long, painful silence. Isabella looked around the home that was once hers, now filled with laughter she no longer belonged to, her pride, her anger, her heartbreak. All showed on her face. Finally, she whispered, you'll regret this, Samuel. But he didn't answer. He simply took Olivia's hand, gently, protectively, and that told Isabella everything she needed to know. Her chapter in Samuel's life was over, and as she walked out of the mansion, the door closing behind her, the future of Samuel and Olivia quietly began. After the confrontation that shook the entire mansion, Samuel knew there was no turning back. The truth had finally come to light, and the pieces of their broken marriage could never fit together again. A week later, Samuel filed for a divorce. There was no shouting, no dramatic court scene. Just signatures, silence, and the end of a bond that had never truly been love. Isabella tried to fight it at first, but the world outside was already collapsing around her. The scandal involving her father continued to spread online. The public dragged her family mercilessly, every headline, every post, every video, reminding her of everything they had lost. She became the villain of her own story. Her name, once respected, turned into a punchline. Friends avoided her. People whispered as she walked by. Sponsors cut ties. Her father became a national disgrace. And the weight of it all crushed her. Isabella fell into depression, the kind that keeps you in a dark room for days, the kind that makes you question every choice you've ever made. Meanwhile, Samuel moved forward with quiet peace. Starlight Enterprise continued to grow, and although he and Olivia kept their relationship private at first, their bond remained strong, honest, and unbroken, built not on wealth or favors, but on loyalty, sacrifice, and love that rose from the ashes. Their story continued, while Isabella's chapter slowly closed behind her, and just like that, this tale of love, betrayal, ambition, and redemption comes to an end. Hi bestie, thank you so much for watching my story to the very end. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video. I can't wait to bring another interesting story your way. Bye for now.